Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good evening. It is 10 o'clock p.m. here in Calgary, Alberta, and I am glad to be here. This is going to be a great show. We have Rae Luskin with us here again tonight. This is going to be a show we're going to be talking about shame and guilt, mainly as a result of child abuse and the issues of shame and guilt. And so Rae Luskin is here with us, and I'll just bring you right on. Hello, Rae.
Hi, Lorianne. How are you tonight?
Just great. Glad to be here.
Good.
Always nice to have you.
It's sort of an interesting topic. It's a little hard to think about it at 11 o'clock at night where I am.
Right.
It's a really important topic to discuss.
Right. But it's
I think we probably should just sort of start with a definition. What is shame, and we have the difference. If you go to Bradshaw's work, it's shame and toxic shame, or somebody who I've been looking at is Bryn Brown, and she does work on it, and she sort of talks about the difference between guilt and shame. Where she says, shame takes over your whole identity. It's about, not what you did, but who you are. How we take it in and we, and it controls us. Those are all the terms. I'm worthless, I'm broken, I'm, all those kinds of things. And it becomes an I am statement versus, I did, something,
okay.
and I said about something. So do you agree with that?
I do, just because of what I, my own personal stuff that happened to me as a child. You know what I mean? I sort of recognize that as being, taking on that what was told to me, that I was worthless, or that I was not wanted, that I was, whatever, stuff that had been told to me as a child. You do sort of, after a while, start taking that on. You can. Not everyone will, but you hear it enough, and it's reinforced. It can become part of your belief system that you are damaged, you are worthless, you are whatever they're saying you are. You know what I mean? So
right.
I do agree with
and
that.
And it has long consequences. It affects your self-esteem. Your need to be perfect. Sort of, it's like I'm going to be either the rebel or I'm going to be perfect. Or I'm going to please you. It's the big codependency thing. Because if you really knew me, you'd leave me. You wouldn't like me. So we unwittingly, start, we sit at least for me personally, when I was younger, I know this is what I did. I just had no self-value, and I didn't trust myself from the abuse. I didn't trust my own perceptions of things. So I'd sit back and I would observe people. I never stated my opinion about anything. I sort of just sat on the fence and looked and tried not to have an opinion. Sort of like, okay, I'll be an invisible observer of life. And it really affected me greatly, because I carried that shame for a really long time, and every once in a while it still crops up. There are things about the shame that, it lives within you. It is, that the messages that we start playing in our head are over and over about I am not good enough, I am not this, I am not that, or I am, it's like, who'd want me? Oh, you wanted the sex, so you start believing you're a bad person or whatever, or you enjoyed the sex with your perpetrator, and, it's like, see, you wanted it, so the junk we leave in our brains, it just goes on and on, unless we break the cycle.
Right, and we have to learn how to think differently. And I think that's what, I had to do myself, was to learn how to turn off those, all that negative feedback that was coming in. Really, it was just a replay of what had been told to me as a child that was negative, that was, very harmful and negative, mainly, by my parents mainly. And I had to actually learn as an adult that not to listen to those voices and to listen to my own voice,
How did you do that? What were some of the things you used so you wouldn't?
Actually, I still do it because I still hear their voices. When things aren't going well and I feel I'm overtired or something's gone wrong and something's happened and it's caused some issues in my life or something, I can hear any number of things pop into my head. You're stupid. You're worthless. I quite often hear horrible stuff that my mom used to tell me, which was you're a whore, you're a slut. These types of things will pop into my head just random. I'll just be sitting around, flashbacks or whatever. And what I started to do, mainly about 4 years ago, was to say, no, that's not true. And even though I hear that voice in my head, I don't have to believe it. I don't have to, because I know it's not true. And so therefore, I can believe what I know about myself, which is I'm a good person. And I really started to go through this stuff. It was a lot of sitting around my own apartment, doing this on my own, looking in the mirror saying, no, you do count. You are worth it. Talking to myself, and not listening to those voices. And it's still, they try to come back. Every now and then I still hear them. And, when they just pop in, hopefully people can hear us. Some people are saying they can't hear us. They'll have to refresh, I guess. So hopefully somebody will let us know in the chat room if they can hear us, if they're listening. Because I know Gypsy Witch is there and she's listening.
Okay.
But Sandra McLeish says she can't hear. I'll just type in to refresh.
Okay. And
so hopefully it says don't speak too fast, take a break. Wow, this is weird. A strange chat room. So, Gypsy Witch can hear us. So I think the only one who's having a problem is Sandra McLeish. So this is the thing. I had to, I did this on my own, and I just decided to change, to not listen to that old negative stuff that was from a long time ago that had been eating away at me forever, and to change my mind about who I was, and that I was a good person. I did not deserve that, and I started working with myself. It did help me a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I did a lot of work with affirmations. Where I would my first thing was, to really see how negative my voice was. One day I just sat down for 15 minutes and I wrote out every thought that came in my head. 95% of it was negative. I couldn't believe it. It just boggled my mind. So, so that was one thing. And I always suggest that to people if they're not sure what voice they're hearing, and then you can actually go through each one that you wrote down and say, who really said that?
Right.
Was it a parent, a friend, a teacher, a coach? Where did that come from, or is that from you?
Right.
I think we have to really start paying attention to really where did that voice come from,
Right.
and before we can say, okay, I choose today not to listen to that voice, So, so I believe in doing some of that kind of written work, and on the other hand, I also believe in doing like a collage where I find a loving parent figure, holding a child, or you put a picture of yourself, because it's not always your parent who's loving and kind, but find a picture and take out, cut out all the words or things that you'd like your parent to say to you, as a child, coming from that child place, that you're loved, you're special, that I adore you no matter what, all those things, because
that's awesome.
I don't know, I found...
That's what I need to do.
Oh, yeah, I still have to do it. I mean, that was one of the reasons I started making blessing cards and saying, I appreciate your loving kindness. You bring light to the world, things like that, because I didn't hear any of that. I never got that. So it became really important, and it's sort of like, it's like you got to hear it from somebody else before you can say it to yourself. So I started writing them out, because then it was like, it's I am and you are, and so it's a combination of both, so you can sort of trick your mind, I think, and so
that it becomes another outside voice, right? Exactly.
Right. Yeah, because I've always heard, you should be able to tell yourself that. Well, if you've never heard it, how can you tell yourself that?
Right, and then you might not believe it too. I know a lot of times people, when I first started doing some of this affirmation work, in the very first part of my healing journey, I was sitting there thinking, okay, you don't believe this stuff, but you're going to say it anyway. It's like you're going to tell yourself that you love yourself. And I'd be like, okay, I love myself. I'm like, do you really believe it? I don't think so. But I'm going to keep doing it, and you know what I mean? I was kind of...
Right. Well, when I did affirmations, I would write it out, and I would say, I love you, and then I'd write, are you crazy? I love you. And every negative thought until there wasn't another negative thought that came out.
Right.
So I started with the whole litany of, this can't be true. No one would believe it, until I finally said, okay, there's nothing left here. So maybe now I can actually say the other one, that I really do love and respect you, that kind of thing. So,
right.
Yeah.
That's very good. We have a comment from the chat room saying that Gypsy Witch loves collage work, and she says great technique and very effective. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that's the thing. that would be very helpful for me because I did not hear any of those loving words as a child. You know what I mean? Like we were not, my mother was not capable of being that type of nurturing mother, right? So none of us heard that. 7 siblings, and we really needed that. All babies and all children do, and they need that affirmation, that the bond, the attachment, the nurturing, And so we have to learn. I was doing some reading and looking around at what was out there as far as survivor journals and survivor books and whatnot goes, and they were saying, it's important you have to learn how to self-nurture. You have to learn how to get the stuff that you didn't get as a child. So you have to learn how to do this. And I started to really pay attention to when my inner child was really starting to, when I first began my healing journey, I could really feel the rage and, this pent-up rage and anger. And I learned, to start to self-comfort, to self-nurture myself. And that really has been a huge help to me, because we don't sometimes we don't have somebody in our life who can do that for us,
Right. And I think a big thing we have to pay attention to, too, is when is it nurturing and when is it numbing? Mm-hmm. And I know I use food to numb, whereas it may have been started as a nurturing thing, but then I can also use it for numbing, and I think there's that fine line, and that's sort of like, if I take a drink to calm myself and then I take 10 drinks, one is nurturing, maybe one, and then the other is numbing, how do we cope with everything? And we have to sort of be aware of that when we do that. But I believe in making, I'm big on visual diaries and stuff. And so, one of the things I suggest is, if you want to nurture yourself, write down the things that, make a list or cut out pictures, because I think it has more impact if you can visually see it as well as the words.
You can see it. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I need a massage. I take a bubble bath. I light candles. Whatever your list is of things that you can do to nurture yourself. And maybe maybe it's getting a good book, or calling a friend, or taking a walk in nature, praying, meditating. We all have our own things that work for us, but we get very forgetful in those moments. And so then we, and this is for everybody, because I believe that shame is a universal human emotion, and it really doesn't always have to do with abuse.
That's right.
You can experience shame on so many things today. It's like you're out of work, you lost your house, your child is, addicted, so you can have many things that weren't necessarily bound to abuse situations, but we've internalized this pain, and this feeling of worthlessness that, and again, if anybody knew me, what would I do? So you sort of distance yourself from yourself as well as your friends, because you sort of like start pulling back and inward, and that's when you need people the most, is when you're hurting like that, and yet we pull away. So we sort of this double bind for ourselves.
That's right.
It's like I this other thing that I suggest, because I'm always into the arts, is think about all the masks you wear every day when you go to work, the people you hang out with. If your life was, the mask, I mean, it's sort of like, how many do you really wear in a day? And what would you really like to express to the world? Because if you were totally being yourself, what would that look like? I think that's part of nurturing ourselves, is being authentic. And we don't talk about that very often, as part of that nurturing ourselves. But I think especially for people who've been abused and have these deep shame-based messages, we have to allow ourselves to be open, and share ourselves in a deep, enriching way. So. Right.
Yeah. That's just the thing, and it's it's tough. It's having to deal with that stuff. You know what I mean? I'm talking from like you, Rae, as a survivor. You know what I mean, of abuse, and it's like I didn't even know what shame was. I didn't realize. I had heard in my lifetime. I heard when I was growing up as a child, people saying, "Well, shame on you," or "Shame on your behavior," and things like this, or should be ashamed of yourself. These types of things. But I didn't really associate. I didn't understand what shame was in my life, and you know what I mean, until I really started looking at it and realizing that it was really the root of a lot of of my issues. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I didn't even know I had shame. I really just thought I was angry. I just thought I was mad about the abuse and, felt bad about the whole thing. And, I don't know if I took on any of the guilt. I guess if I really looked at it, I'm sure I did take on some. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just the whole. I was sexually abused as a child, sexually molested by a sibling, and I talk about this a lot in my shows. So this is not new news to most people who listen to my shows. And I went to my mother and I told her about it. I was 8 years old, and my mother told me that was my problem and I was going to have to deal with it. And that was the end of the conversation. And she said, you're going to have to wrap yourself up in like a mummy when you go to bed. And I was just thinking, oh, okay, that's a lot of help. But my mother was my main abuser, so I didn't push it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the whole idea that a parent could leave you in this situation, you know what I mean, and not care, and basically blame you and say, look, that's not my problem, it's your problem.
Right.
So
right.
you know what I mean? It's kind of, I'm sure somewhere there is a little bit of somewhere deep inside there is probably a little bit of guilt going on in there. You know what I mean? Maybe it was, my fault, or I was just a bad kid, or even the abuse that I suffered at the hands of my parents. The physical abuse, the verbal, emotional, psychological abuse. I might have eventually took on a bit of I must be as bad as they say I am. Because they're the way that they're treating me, I must be the horrible child. You know what I mean?
As children, we don't have boundaries. So when our parents tell us something, we take it as gospel, and we sort of live with that because we haven't differentiated ourselves from the world, So I think it really does affect you that way, and that we do take it on. And, I know for myself, I felt like my body betrayed me because there was pleasure. There was also wanting the personal closeness. It was my grandfather who molested me. And, he was an artist. He understood me. He was the only one. My parents, my mom was physically abusive, and my dad was distant, so I went to him for comfort. So, it's like, I must have wanted it, so therefore I'm a bad person, and I spent a long time grappling with that. Right. And, and how it affected all my relationships. But I didn't even realize how deep the shame was and how I took it, for years, It was like, oh, my God, that's a very huge piece. And how many times now do I say, I still battle myself when I say, yes, I do deserve love. Yes, I do deserve success. And it'll pop up, when I feel any kind of apprehension or anxiousness, it's like those are the words that creep up, you don't deserve it. And even though I live a healthy life 95% of the time, those are the little areas in my life that just, I wrote a Twitter not too long ago. I said, my secret was my abuse, but my shame is the fat on my body, and that's very visible to the world, And, I was doing some reading, too, about shame today, and it's so clear about body image in women in general, aging and body image, and there's so many shoulds out there, not only the internal one that we got from our mother, ourselves, whatever, but you got this external world of media saying, you should be skinny, you should be this, you should look like this, and it's like, so where is the authentic self? I sort of say, okay, what would be my, how would I really feel successful? Where would that worthiness fit in when you've got all this buzz around you of saying, you don't fit in, you don't look right, you never will, and so it just sort of, it's a real struggle, to get through that.
It absolutely is. I know. And I'm, as a survivor of child abuse, I totally relate to that. And I hated my body when I was growing up, and I hated the fact that it was turning, that things were happening. You know what I mean? I was developing into this, prepubescent girl, and I just because of the sexual abuse that I suffered, and as well as watching the abuse that my dad was inflicting upon my mother. That was very, very much sexual abuse. You know what I mean? My dad was, it was marital rape. He was literally forcing himself on her, and at one time actually did that in front of me. So it was very shocking, and I hated my body. I hated what had happened to me. When I was abused sexually by my sibling, and so I couldn't get in touch with my how I felt about my body. I hated my body, and I didn't want to even look at it. It was so disgraceful. My dad was the type that would walk, get in the bathroom when you're having a shower and ogle and this kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of sexual abuse in my home, and so I just felt like I needed to hide my body. You know what I mean? I needed to hide that I was a girl. It's not that I was interested in, I was very much interested in guys and had little crushes on these little neighborhood guys and
right,
and guys at school. But I would, I was actually just trying to be like non-sexual because of that. And I think that had a lot to do with the whole shame of being abused, you know what I mean? And just not liking my body, not loving my body for me, not loving me for me or loving my body. And I had a lot of problems with that. It's been only the last few years that I've actually been able to even make some sort of peace with it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still struggling. I'm still struggling with my body, but I definitely have a much better outlook on my body than I used, about myself.
Right, I did. I mean, I was totally blocked. I mean, my body was a separate entity from me. I would refer to the third person,
Right.
It was like, I mean,
yeah.
they weren't connected in any way. I didn't belong to my body, and and I went through a lot of body work and process and did a lot of that. So there was an integration of my body and me, But it was like I used it. I built a wall of fat to protect myself. I wanted to be invisible. I figured if I was fat, no man's going to want to touch me. Keep them at a distance.
Right.
And all that kind of stuff, which was all part of it. And then it was insidious in the sense that I found food was comforting and numbing all at the same time. It gave me both pleasure and pain,
Right.
Like, okay, and then I spent my life saying, well, when I lose the weight, I will. So I put my life on hold, and I'm sure we do that all the time, and a lot of people do it. When I get my new job, when I get my PhD, when I make six figures, when I get married, when I'm healed, when he dies, I'll start living. We put up this when I will, for ourselves. So it's so sad because we are beautiful, beautiful women, people in general, and we just have to, allow ourselves to be perfectly imperfect, because that's what we are, and to live our lives based on that, I mean, that's been really interesting for me to really grasp that and place and know in a knowingness in my heart that it's okay to be perfectly imperfect. There is no such thing as the perfect anything anymore.
Yeah, just being able to accept the fact that that I am going to make mistakes, and I am, that things are going to happen, and I'm not perfect. That's all there is to it. Yeah,
right.
That's right.
I am beautiful, worthy. I deserve love.
Excuse me.
And those are all the pieces that have to go along with that. That it's okay if not everything's in place, but I'm enough. And it's really interesting because so much of the healing process is, you say you're in process and you're changed and when I'm healed. Well, it took me a long time to realize there was no when I'm healed, at least for me. It's like it's a process. And it's okay to be wherever I am in the process. And it's a lifelong learning process because obviously whatever triggers me is not the same trigger 20 years ago. It's like a moment here and a moment there and stuff. But it's really hard to come to grips with some of these things and just to be okay with who you are. It is, it's wonderful when it happens. And it's like, yay, I finally got there, and then you find out. Somebody pulls the rug out from you under, and I didn't get that,
Right. It's like, okay, I'm not quite there.
Right. Yeah, I thought I made it. Yeah.
I was like, what happened? I thought I arrived, but I guess I hadn't arrived. Yeah,
right.
I know.
And I guess we just have to embrace our vulnerabilities and imperfections, and just engage in life no matter what. And I think, unfortunately, there are a lot of survivors who still hide and don't feel that they're empowered enough to go forward with it, right. And they're looking for that when I am, I will live. And that is sad to me. And I only wish that they could find a way to move beyond that. Yeah.
Oh, it is very sad. I know. Because most of us here tonight we have quite a few people here in the chat room. Thank you very much for being here, everybody. With lots of people here. Yeah, this is the thing. So many of us are survivors, and we at what point do we allow, like we were talking on the last show that we were talking about, Rae, that we were saying we have to almost allow ourselves to heal. It's like, at what point do we actually say, okay, I'm going to allow myself and give myself permission to go to heal, to have
right?
a good
How about
life.
Just live a joyful life, without quote being healed? I think that we get stuck in the words about I have to be healed,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot, and I did that for many, many years. This is just recent for me, switching that around and say, okay, it's okay, just wherever I am, as long as I'm willing to talk about it, to share my authentic self as much as I can, because I think that I can have empathy for people, they can have empathy for me, we connect in a deeper way, and that's the part that it's when I kept hidden who I really was and I was never connecting. So how could I ever feel the joy, of life, if I'm always, waiting for Godot, as they would say. I think we started talking about this on the last show, too, how I hid myself from my husband at the time, I told him I was abused, but that was it. He didn't know anything else. He didn't know what it meant. I never shared the depths of my despair. I never shared the fact how I felt about, our sex lives and our friends and not any of these things. So, of course, that was doomed.
You didn't know. Yeah.
How could it not be? Because there was no honest, direct communication there. And that's what I mean. I love talking to you because as I go through the process every time we've talked, I learn a little bit more about me, about you, and hopefully that's what we're giving to everybody else too, because it is a process, and the more people are willing to talk about it for wherever they are in their process, the more we can learn from each other.
Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, that's exactly right. Because I learned from so many people, and from talking to you, from talking to lots and lots of people that we in our daily walk that we talk to as survivors and people who've been there and people who are doing some awesome work, and you do learn a whole lot from people. Absolutely. I started my healing journey, I would say, like 4 years ago, because it was a conscious choice. I was like, okay, I can do this. I can learn to have a good life. I can actually learn to love myself and take care of myself instead of wanting to be out of this world and out of my body and out of this life, And I thought, I'm going to have to be responsible for this, you know what I mean? Like, nobody can do this for me. I'm going to have to do this. And I realized I was going to have to, reach in and get a hold of that inner child of mine who needed to be loved and needed to be, actually just needed some attention. Because she was screaming in there going, do you see me? I'm still here, and I'm still very angry, and I'm still wounded. You know what I mean? So I had to learn how to get in touch with her. And, it's a long, this is right. If you wait till you say, oh, I'll do this when I'm healed, or I'll be better when I'm healed, it's like it could take you, you know what I mean? You don't know how long that's going to take you. You know what I mean? That's the thing. I have started to realize that, there's a whole lot to healing that it's continual. It just goes on and on and on. Mm-hmm. And so,
we don't know the depths of what we can experience,
Yeah, that's right.
As survivors, we've cut off a lot of feelings, or we're stuck in the feelings of the shame, the anger, the resistance, the fear. All those places are really the loud voices in our lives, whereas the other side, the peace, the calm, the joy, the engagement with people is the smaller voice, So you have to allow it to shift.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's just, it's very good. It's very, very good. That's some good info. Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, we have about a minute left. These shows go so fast.
Did that go fast?
It really does. I know when you get to talking, it's like, oh, okay, there we go. So, yeah, we had a lot of people here tonight. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Appreciate it. And, you can be sure and check out Rae Luskin's website, because she's got some great info on there, beautiful stuff on that website. And just for anybody who's listening to the archive, since I popped the link into the chat room, you wouldn't know what it is. It's www.raeluskin, RaeLuskin.net. So be sure and go and check out Rae's website, because she's got some great. She also have some interesting things coming up, possible workshops and whatnot.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to be doing some new workshops about strong women share secrets, and if you're interested in participating, because it's going to be teleseminars, I think, is the format, so it can be anybody from around the world. Please contact me, write me at my on my contact page there, that would be great because I'd love to talk to you and see if it's a fit for us, that maybe we can work together. So if you're interested in what I call a discovery session, take about an hour and a half on the phone. It's not a counseling thing. It's really just to sort of see where you are and if we would be a fit. Because I only want to work with people who, I feel like that they can get, the most out of my modality and my work, because I want everybody to be happy and successful.
Exactly, because otherwise it's not beneficial for either. So it's
right,
kind of,
right.
it's to be beneficial.
Please do that. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to spend the time talking to you. So as I said, go to raeluskin.net and we can, go from there.
Yeah,
so
that's great. That's just awesome. Well, that's all. Thanks, Rae, for coming and being here on the show tonight. I appreciate it. It was lovely talking to you again.
Yes, it was, and we'll have to do it again, Lori.
That's right. I'm sure we will. So
I'm
have
sure
a great
we will
night.
Too.
Have a wonderful week ahead.
You too. Good night.
Okay. Good night. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks a lot for being here. And I'll be back on tomorrow morning, One Child Abuse Survivor to another, same time, same place, 6 o'clock in the morning, and then Mountain Standard Time, and then tomorrow night on Dreamcatchers Talk Radio if you want to catch that at here on Blog Talk Radio, www.blogtalkradio.com/Dreamcatchers. So thanks a lot to Rae Luskin for being here. She's such a nice lady, and she's she's a good friend, and she's just so very she's just such a caring person, and just is so helpful and so hopeful, and I hope you will go check out her website because she's got some beautiful stuff on her website, and she's just done some amazing work to help survivors of abuse and of all the different types of abuse, and just anybody who's just having a hard time. So be sure and check out her webpage and her website and whatnot. So thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Thanks to Sandra McLeish and Linda Roger and lots and lots of people that come here tonight to listen to this show. So I appreciate you taking the time to do that since it's on pretty late at night, and I know people are busy. So thanks again, and have a great night. And take care of yourselves, everybody. You stick around. If you have, if you're having issues and troubles and you just can't seem to cope as a survivor, and you're thinking, I don't know how I'm going to be able to cope, I don't know what to do. If you don't have someone to talk to, you phone a crisis line. I say this almost on every show because it's so important, because sometimes we can't reach people. There's nobody there for us to talk to. And, if you're feeling that you can't cope and you just can't do it, you phone a crisis line. You phone somebody. You get some help, right? But you stick around because your life does matter. It does count. You matter to me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing these shows. So thanks a lot, everybody, for being here. Have a great night. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye. Good night.
Good night.